Tess by Willis Abshire. In a place where place did not exist, where land and time was not yet created, there was the most glorious and supreme God Yahweh. There was none other before him, and there is none other besides him, and there will be none other after him. In whatever state of existence he was, by his sovereignty known only to him, he began to create. He spoke into existence celestial beings, the angels, the cherubim and seraphim, winged creatures of magnificent stature and beauty, the stars, heavens, and celestial lights, great lights and little lights, and the little lights were as much a delight to him as the greater lights. This was to show his glory and power. In this marvelous design, manifested for his honor, he called forth one planet called Edetz, the earth, with a beauty very much like the pattern of his abode. Many rulers of the fallen era has pridefully endeavored to create kingdoms here on earth, to try and copy the majesty that belongs only to Yahweh. He created creatures both great and small to show his omnipotent power and ability. Creatures so enormous their size and stature is breathtaking, and creatures so small that the natural eye would not be able to see them. The design of each creature was so intricate that only an intelligence far beyond intelligence could have created these entities. The thing formed cannot help but worship this great Creator, for that is why they were brought forth. Then, for whatever reason, Yahweh deliberately from his creation, the earth, formed an image of himself, but lower than himself, for he dwelt in the heavenlies. But his image would dwell here on his earth. And the angel stood and watched as the almighty sovereign Elohim, with a breath from which he created all things, blew a wind from his being into his creation, and man became a living soul. Man became different than the rest of Yahweh's creation, for in him dwelt his breath. For with the breath of his wind in Adam's nostril came the divine inspiration and ability to know and recognize his Creator. The earth was enormous, and Yahweh made for Adam a garden called Eden, for which man would till the garden and govern this land, just as Yahweh had created an unending universe for which he would govern. One day his son Adam would govern these universes too. But Adam had no helpmate, so Yahweh by predetermined design caused a deep sleep over Adam, and took a rib and formed a creation like Adam, yet still different. What was taken out of Adam was brought back to him, and now he had a helpmate, Eve, the mother of all living. But his most cherished creation committed high treason, and falling prey to the deceiver, the one who wanted to be in the Creator's place, Adam and his helpmate lost the innocence that was deposited in them by Yahweh's design. The fellowship they once experienced by sight was now gone, because Yahweh cannot look upon sin. And now Adam and his wife were lost, left to themselves with despondency and fear, desperately trying to cover their nakedness. But can the Almighty Creator leave his creation? I think not. For in a mercy established before the creation of all things, that which was needed for their redemption was dealt with. The precious Lamb slain before the foundation of the world. As the earth began to age and mankind began to multiply, Yahweh did not leave Adam to himself. He put in him a measure of faith, to call out to him, to look out there and explore Yahweh's greatness. But what about all those little stars and lights in the heavens that he placed? Perhaps he just wanted to show the intricacy of his love and awesome abilities. Perhaps to those that view the heavenlies, to look at his creation, only view those large celestial lights to understand the awesome power of gravitational pull on other bodies out there in God's environment. But the little lights, though just a blink in man's eyes, holds perhaps a greater place in Elohim's heart than we might think. For one man who prayed in a graveyard, Yahweh sent a little light to make him complete. A man who had gone through enough pain in his life prayed for Yahweh to send him a godly wife, but the time of waiting was painful and lonely. Though not of her own choosing, this little light would have to go through some pain of her own. But back to the beginning. I would imagine that many times Yahweh is delighted in the occasions that his little ones call out to him, even though hardly understanding anything about God, except what Mama daddy, relative, or Sunday school teacher might have taught them. But it is so saddening and a misfortunate fact to know that there will be those out there who will never have anyone to tell them of the love and the sacrifice of the Savior. But this little star did, for she was surrounded by many who loved her dearly, for as one uncle stated, her lips at birth were shaped like a heart. But in all her innocence, she had to learn that she needed a Savior. Ah, those little lights, thought God. I will draw them to myself. Can anyone resist the heart of God? After all, her lips were formed like a heart. In youth, she was the youngest girl of the family, and always had a heart that appreciated what she was given, and endured whatever pain was sent, even in her adult life, of which there has been much. Ah, my little Tess, thought God. You will seek after me, and you will find me, and you will call me Abba, Father. So little Tess came into Yahweh's world with little heart-shaped lips, bright eyes with an innocence that protected and gave her peace in the midst when times were hard. She was a happy child in times of poverty because she did not know she was poor. But Tess was rich, for she was loved. But what is it that moves upon the heart of Yahweh to draw someone to himself? Will we ever know?
God, I've lost my little puppy. Would you please find him for me?
Asked Tess, still very young in life. She grew up with the knowledge of God. As far as the world was concerned, Tess was just a little light, a little star. God found her puppy for her. Of course, there would be many unanswered prayers in Tess's life. For her in life there would be many challenges, many heartaches, much tragedy, but many would be the joys of motherhood, family, friends, and a relationship with the Almighty Creator that would keep her through all the trials of life, trials that are promised to all those born of a woman. One evening about dusk, Tess was walking around her yard observing the lightning bugs, gazing at the stars as the evening darkened. Lifting her eyes up to the heavens and thinking back about the thoughts that had occupied her that day, she sat down in frustration on a tree stump. There was this conflict going on in the mind of this young daughter of Yahweh.
Everything has a beginning. Everything started somewhere. But you said you always were, and it doesn't make any sense to me.
Pleading Tess almost to tears and frustration.
How can you always be and not have a start?
Asked Tess in a mindset that was driving her crazy. Round it went in her little mind, bouncing back and forth like a pinball, striking thoughts, trying to figure out her eternal Father. These questions had bothered Tess for a very long time. For you see, she was every bit of 10 years old. How many times, my friends, have we, even in our older, more mature years, have asked similar questions? How much of Tess is in each of us? For the mortal mind to understand immortality and pre-existence can sometimes be baffling. So in a frustrated finality, with an overwhelming faith, Tess screamed out,
Okay, that's it. You said it, and that is enough.
It was the only way that she could get some peace, and peace came. So in her little heart, as big as the universe, she believed that God existed. For does not the Scripture state that without faith it is impossible to please God? Yahweh was pleased with little Tess. This has not been a long story, but it is a true story, only the name was changed. But Tess was once a dream that came during sleep to the one of whom this little story has been written. And yes, the man in the graveyard was me, lonely, broken-hearted, and felt left out by God, not knowing what my future held, came to a final understanding that whatever state that I was in, to be joyous and thankful. This story has been written from much of a first-hand and intimate knowledge, for you see, Tess grew up and became a man's wife, lived, loved, bore children, and then her spouse died and went on to be with the Lord. Now, by the grace and most blessed mercy of Yahweh, Yahweh's little light is now my wife. Shalom, Willis Abshire. Yahweh is truly a God of wonders.